Hey, Seattle hockey fans, Eric Lindsay Ayala, and happy Monday. Now, this is the first Monday of the Seattle Kraken off season. The first time we've ever had one of these, so we're keeping up with those firsts. The Seattle Kraken faced the Winnipeg Jets in their final game of the inaugural season. So we're going to recap that, and we're going to go back to the last home game of the inaugural season, and finally we'll close out getting ready for the entry draft, free agency, and I'll let you know what those other teams are doing now that we are here in the National Hockey League postseason for the 2021-22 season. That's what's coming up on Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
Hello again, Seattle hockey fans. Welcome to the Monday episode of Locked On Kraken. I'm your host, Erica Lindsay Ayala, and this episode of Locked On Kraken is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And where we're going to start this episode is actually with the recap that I did for the Locked On Now show. I'll tell you more about that as it's coming up, but this is what I posted for Locked On Now after the Seattle Kraken 4-3 loss to the Winnipeg Jets on the road, their final game of the inaugural season. Hey, Seattle Kraken hockey fans, Erica Lindsay Ayala here, and we're wrapping up the Seattle Kraken season. Unfortunately, they end with another loss. They lost to the Winnipeg Jets on the road. That was a 4-3 game, 4-3 win for the Jets. The Seattle Kraken were able to come back. They gave up a goal in the first period, scored all three of their goals in the second frame or the second stanza, which we've talked about in the last week or so has been kind of a really rough 20 minutes for the Kraken, but unfortunately they give up 3 goals, lose 4-3. So that wraps up the season. I'm so thankful for all of you for tuning in, but don't fret. We have more Seattle Kraken hockey news coming because the Seattle Kraken have the third best odds to draw the number 1 pick in the 2022 entry draft. Those odds were officially released by the National Hockey League just moments ago. The only teams with the better odds are the Montreal Canadiens and the Arizona Coyotes. So we already know what Matty Beniers was able to do in just 10 games. Number 10, the 10 games, scored 9 points in his first 10 games for the Seattle Kraken. So who is to say we can't get another top pick and that it won't be really just the start of something great for this expansion team? I told you early, my bold prediction was that we would win a Stanley Cup before the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Well, they've been eliminated, so we still can make that come true. So you know what that means. We're going to hold fast. We're going to stay true. And even in the offseason, we're saying, let's go Kraken. I'll see you tomorrow, Monday, for the next episode of Locked On Kraken. And so I mentioned it there in the recap. I mentioned it in the open to this episode, but we're going to get into the lottery odds. We're going to talk about all of that, but now you know we have the third best odds behind the Montreal Canadiens and the Montreal Canadiens, and the Arizona Coyotes. So stay tuned. Later in the show, we'll break all of that down and go over not only the odds for the lotto draft, or the lotto for the draft, but also, again, the NHL playoffs. But right now, let's go back to that game against the Winnipeg Jets, the last game of the first season for the Seattle Kraken. As usual, we're going to go over to NHL.com and take a look at the stats and the facts. You see that the Winnipeg Jets really were able to win in the face-off circles. They had more block shots. The Seattle Kraken did have more shots on goal, and they had a power play goal, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But overall, I did notice that Chris Driedger, who is in net for the Seattle Kraken, Chris Driedger, that first goal, unfortunately, it was Matty Beniers, my guy Matty Beniers, who kind of coughed up the puck. He did do what he could to get back on defense, but it just wasn't enough with Driedger and Matty to keep Morgan Barron off the board. That was just his second goal overall. That came at the 3:47 mark in the first period. So the Seattle Kraken giving up an early goal. We've heard it all before this season. So that was unfortunate. Another thing that I noticed while watching this game, Chris Driedger got beat a lot on the 5-hole. So going right between the pads, that's something I want to keep an eye on as we move forward. The Seattle Kraken did bounce back, as I mentioned, and it was Wenberg that got things started. McCann and Beniers set up Wenberg. That's that power play goal that I mentioned. Then you had Daniel Sprong, Pouliot, and Trelowski get the assist there. I really like what Daniel Sprong has been able to do for the Seattle Kraken. I've mentioned it before. When he came over at the trade deadline, he talked about, being a player that felt that offense was one of his strong suits, and that he felt that his season with Washington up to the trade deadline had not reflected that. And so getting back to what he felt were kind of his bread and butter, his basics of being able to contribute is something that he wanted to do here with Seattle. And I think that Daniel Sprong has been able to do that. And then, of course, we had Riley Sheahan scoring. It was Wenberg getting his second point of the game on the primary assist. And then Donskoy, that came at the 13:19 mark for the Seattle Kraken. Unfortunately, the Seattle Kraken had their defensive breakdowns in the third period. So we see here the Blake Wheeler goal early in the third period, followed by Dominic Toninato, and then Kyle Connor with his 47th on the season. Driedger getting beat 5-hole. Again, some defensive breakdowns for the Seattle Kraken that led to some of these. Not really much to say. It was not the ending that we wanted to the regular season, but certainly, we can't say that it wasn't expected to some degree. The inconsistency of the Seattle Kraken, if we're being honest, is still prevalent. But here's what Jared McCann, in very few words, had to say after the game, and then Dave Hakstol as well. And he alludes to some of what will happen in the coming days as far as what to expect with conversations with players.
Personally, just little things to work on. Obviously, trying to become a more complete player in the NHL. That's always the goal, and obviously got some work to do. It's personally to say that, I feel like that we could have been better this year. Obviously, we let some games slip away, and could have had a couple extra points there. So I feel like moving forward here, it's something to learn from. But the future's looking pretty bright. We got some young prospects that are really good, and maybe next year they can step in and play some games. Yeah, obviously not the way you want to end the season, and it's going to weigh on you going into next year. But at the same time, I feel like it was a learning experience for the entire organization. Like I said before, we have a bright future, and got to go up from here.
Thanks, Jared.
Well, our play over the since the trade deadline and a couple weeks before has been really sound, really solid. We've been real competitive in each and every game. It doesn't really matter who the opponent is at this time of year. So there's a lot of pieces of our game that we've really liked over the last stretch here, coming down the last 2 months. So those are the pieces that we'll take. Now we start to dig in and reevaluate things, and that process starts tomorrow. Well, the first thing we're going to do is go through our player evaluations, and that we'll get through our end of year player meetings. That'll begin tomorrow and happen over the next couple of days, and that's the first step in the process. And then from there it's it's a team evaluation, so we'll look into those areas, and then you start looking at the different pieces that that may help improve us. So that's not something I can answer immediately today. That's part of the process that we start working at now. Yeah, it's not the points that that stand out for me. It's his overall play. When you look at his 200-foot game and his play in all different situations, whether it's his poise on the power play, his intelligence defensively and without the puck, all of those areas have been impressive, and he's done a nice job of that through his first 10 games. So now, for him, there's an opportunity here to have a great summer of training. He's got his feet wet. He knows and understands a little bit more about this level, having played the past 10 games. And now he can go into the summer and just continue to build, for himself personally.
So there you have it. McCann, again, not really looking to put a cherry on top just yet. Dave Hakstol kind of getting us ready for what's going to happen. The Seattle Kraken have released that media schedule as far as some of the players that we'll hear from on media day. They're going to wrap things up pretty soon here. So we'll cover all of that right here on Locked On Kraken. I think, again, not really much to say about this particular game. I think this particular game in a lot of ways was indicative of what we saw throughout the season. But coming up next on Locked On Kraken, as I mentioned, I do want to go over the last home game of the inaugural season for the Seattle Kraken, and I think that'll be more of a feel-good mood, and then we'll get you ready not just for what comes next this season for the Seattle Kraken. I mentioned kind of the media day exit interviews, but also what is coming for the National Hockey League. Now, let me remind you that BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Stay tuned if you want to know those playoff odds for the first round. We're going to talk about that in the third segment. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, and of course, the Stanley Cup playoffs that are starting soon. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Locked On Kraken, and I showed you the clip that should be populated and circulated for the latest Locked On Now. That's where experts and your local hosts are giving you breakdowns, recaps, post-game recaps. We're going to have a lot of that going into the playoffs. Breaking news, signings, lotto odds, things like that. So you're not going to want to miss that. It's a really good way to keep up with everything happening, not just in the National Hockey League, and that's where I contribute to Locked On Now, but also for any other leagues that you follow. And just like everything else, including, of course, your favorite Seattle Kraken podcast, or one of them, that is available for free on YouTube and anywhere you listen to podcasts. All right, as promised, I want to go back just a few days ago. We're going to go back to the Seattle Kraken's final home game. And before we do that, though, I really did enjoy some of the things that the guys were saying before the game. They had the San Jose Sharks at home. That was last Friday. And, Yanni Gourde in particular had some amazing things to say to you, the fans, the crew, the 32 crew. That's a great follow if you're not doing that already, but also collectively, we, right? Us, the fans, we've got our number in the rafters, and it truly has been a delight. It hasn't been an easy season, even as a fan, as a reporter, and of course for the team on the ice. But that being said, we still found ways to bring out the joy in the sport, in this new franchise, and certainly in each other. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward, because I hope Locked On Kraken will continue to spark joy for you even in the off season. Okay, so like I mentioned, I want you to hear first from some of the guys. I believe we've got Eberle up and Yanni Gourde talking about this season. So let's hear from Yanni Gourde pre-game. This is before the San Jose Sharks rolled into Climate Pledge Arena, the last home game of the season.
I mean, they've been great to us throughout the whole season. Especially like the first game was phenomenal. So we definitely want to showcase what how we've grown this year, and play a good game in front of them because they deserve it. And they've been like I said, they've been great to us the whole year. So it's definitely a good moment to show our appreciation. It's tough to describe how you feel as a player on the ice when those things happen, but you feel that energy that kind of takes over, and it's coming from the crowd, and it's special. Like I get that sometimes on the PK when I have a good PK shift, and then like you can feel the energy in the building just hyping up, and it just it's special, and it's something we get. There's moments like this every game in this building, and it's not like other places. Like it's not like that. Like this building, you get some of that crowd vibe energy that you can feed off every single game, which is tremendous and so nice.
And you heard it there, Yanni wanting to play for the fans, knowing how integral the fans have been, even when it's been a tough season. So we'll leave it there for now with Yanni Gourde. A few of the other guys did speak, but look over on Locked On Kraken. Some of the stuff that doesn't always make the episode, especially in the offseason, I'm going to try to put that on the YouTube page. So if you're not already following, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Kraken on YouTube. But now let's get into what we actually saw. And it was another first. It was a shutout, a home shutout. The Seattle Kraken were able to blank the San Jose Sharks in Climate Pledge Arena. Chris Driedger was in net, made 24 saves for his first shutout with Seattle. So it's just amazing that the fans, the home crowd, was able to get that going. And if you want the recap on that, our good man Andy Ide has the recap, as you can see here on NHL.com. Well, we talked about Yanni Gourde, and Yanni Gourde came into the game really wanting to put on a show for the fans, and isn't that exactly what Yanni Gourde did? He got his 21st goal of the game. Coleman and Chalowski get the assist on that. Again, this was the game before the game against the Winnipeg Jets. And then you had Adam Larsson gets a goal, his 8th of the season. Alexiak and Beniers score, so that would have been Beniers his 9th point. And then he got his 10th point, or excuse me, his 8th point. This is his 8th point. His 9th point he got against the Winnipeg Jets. So 9 points in 10 games, not too shabby. Talked about that earlier on in the show. And that was all in the first period. It was a quiet second period, and then Victor Rask got on the board, assisted by Riley Sheahan and, of course, Will Borgen. Will Borgen. I always say Borgen. I got to get that right. Sorry, Will. But yeah, amazing to see these guys getting it done. Young Will Borgen right there. So, amazing to just see that the home fans got a good show. I loved keeping up on social media and seeing what everyone was doing for that last game. I thought I was going to make my way out to the Pacific Northwest before everything was said and done this season. It didn't quite happen, but that's okay. Life goes on. I have enjoyed so much being a part of this community. And also, I want to give some stick taps. It's always nice when you get a little bit of recognition. So beneath the pond, 3 stars of the inaugural season. And wouldn't you know, they named Locked On Kraken the 3rd star. I appreciate that so much. Up there was Emerald City Hockey and Sound of Hockey, 2 amazing follows to be in the same kind of conversation with these guys. But it's been such an honor to work alongside these guys. RJ, I got to meet at training camp and the preseason. Of course, Darren met at the expansion draft. Andy Ide met him also at, I guess that would have been the first practice for preseason. So it's been amazing. I can't thank you enough. Again, my work is remote, at least for now. That's the way the cookie crumbles for now. But so just to be in the same kind of breath as the work that's being done on the ground. I want to make it clear that I have nothing but respect. Y'all the real MVPs, going to all the home games. I've appreciated your coverage, and iron sharpens iron. You know, we all are going to bring our own flavor to covering the Seattle Kraken, and that just benefits you as the fan. So make sure you're following Emerald City Hockey. Make sure you're following the Sound of Hockey. I mentioned 32 Crew, obviously Beneath the Pond. So many amazing creators and fans that have made this a special time for us all. So congratulations to the Seattle Kraken for getting that final win. At Climate Pledge Arena, now making space for the Seattle Storm to take cover, as they say. So, let's go. I'm looking forward to that. I should be able to make my way out for some Storm games, rain games. So we're going to have a good time. But coming up next on Locked on Kraken, I mentioned in my preview that we have lotto odds. We also have first round odds. So although we're not in it, also Vegas isn't in it. I mentioned that at the beginning too. My bold prediction is that the Seattle Kraken will win a Stanley Cup before the Las Vegas Aces. So I think we're in good position. We can be a contender in free agency. Definitely have a good shot at a high draft pick. I mean, Matty Beniers has been amazing for us, 9 points in his first 10. And you'll hear from Dave Hakstol, you heard from Dave Hakstol just a little bit about what he expects from Matty Beniers. So that's all coming up on this Monday episode of Locked on Kraken. Right now, though, I'm going to tell you about Built Bar. I talk about Built Bars. I talk about starting my day off right, making sure that I'm getting the nutrition that I need, and the Built Bar is a great way to do that because it helps me with getting my calories right while focusing on the right type of calories, not empty calories. I'm such a snacker. I have a sweet tooth. And so sometimes I think I'm eating because, I know my body needs to eat, but I don't realize that I'm not getting enough calories. I'm not getting enough good kind of nutrients in my body. And that's not the case when you have 130 calories, 17 grams of protein in every Built Bar, which is covered in chocolate. So it still helps those cravings and urges that I have for something sweet. But also only 4 grams of sugar, only 4 net carbs. You've got your puffs, which are basically like this marshmallowy protein-infused goodness that comes with flavors like banana cream pie or the churro flavor. Very, very tasty. Then, of course, you've got your go-tos, the double chocolate, the coconut almonds, the cherry barcia. And then there's a few new ones that I want to make sure you know about. I mentioned banana cream pie already, but we've got, of course, raspberry double chocolate. Those are some of the go-tos. I mean, the flavors are always amazing. So we want to make sure that you are getting a discount when you put your nutrition first. So head over to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15. That will get you 15% off your next order. That's 15% off at built.com on your next order of Built Bar when you use promo code LOCKED15. As I always say, happy snacking. All right, fans, we are coming up to the end of our show here. Before we do, though, I want to mention the lottery odds. I also want to mention some of the BetOnline odds for the first round of the playoffs. Let's first start with the thing that relates to our favorite team. That's right, the Seattle Kraken. And of course, we're talking lottery odds. Now, I'm going to pull this up from an email that we got from the National Hockey League. You can see it right here. The odds for the 2022 lottery. Oh, let me get rid of my, skadoosh. There we go. All right. So we see the lotto odds right there. I hope you can see this. Hold on. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you. Let me just I'll just pull this up for you. All right, there we go. It's a little bit bigger for you. You can see these lottery odds. What? Lottery odds for the draft, for the entry draft. So we have the Montreal Canadiens with an 18.5% chance of getting that first overall pick. Those are the best odds. This is based on a few things. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Obviously, record being one of them. Then you've got the Arizona Coyotes with a 13.5% chance of getting that top pick. And then we're right there, the Seattle Kraken with an 11.5% chance at that number one spot. But even if we don't get that number one first overall pick, we're still pretty good. I mean, and again, that second overall pick worked out really well for the Seattle Kraken. So, there's some things about transfers and whatnot. So, although the Vegas Golden Knights did not make the playoffs, it's important to note that their odds are not great. And that has to do with because this is not just for the last handful of seasons. In the case of the Seattle Kraken, obviously we only have one season, but our odds were high because we didn't have any seasons to go off of. But this is also based off of, different trades that happened. So, for example, the Chicago Blackhawks with the sixth ranked odds at 7.5%. And under the terms of the July 23rd trade, Chicago is going to transfer that first round pick to Columbus if it's not a number 2 pick. So there's a little bit of caveats here. We have to see how the lotto is going to go. Under the terms of the November 4th trade, Vegas will transfer its first round pick to Buffalo if it's not a top 10 pick. So we'll see what happens here. This is just the odds for getting that number 1 pick. It doesn't necessarily mean we're not looking at the draft order. That's important to note. And we'll get to that once we know the lottery. So I'm going to stop sharing that for a moment. So again, the draft lottery is set for Tuesday, May 10th. So that's coming up a week from tomorrow. So you best believe on Locked On Kraken, we're going to talk all about that. But now I want to go over the odds, and I'm going to read this. So bear with me here. I don't have a graphic for this per se, but these are the first round odds for the Stanley Cup playoffs per BetOnline. And so, first of all, let me tell you who's playing whom, if you will, and let's go back to NHL.com just for a minute here, and we can look at the playoffs. So before we go over the odds, let's go over the actual schedule so you know who's playing. Again, we did not make it. We also know Vegas didn't make it, but look who we got here. So on Monday, May 2nd, that's today, you've got Boston at Carolina, the Lightning at Toronto, St. Louis at Minnesota, and Los Angeles Kings. I'm actually really excited for the Kings. Blake Bolden is a part of the Kings. Francisco X Rivera calls the games in Spanish for the Kings. So, de los Kings. I'm always excited for them. They're playing Edmonton. Good for Edmonton as well. I'm not too fond of some of their signings, but that's neither here nor there. On Tuesday, moving on Tuesday, we have the next group, and that is Pittsburgh at New York. New York, my hometown. Then you've got the Washington Capitals at Florida, which is where I am right now. I'm in Florida Panthers country, if you will. Nashville Predators, so excited for Ann Kimmel against the Colorado Avalanche. A team that I've been able to engage with in a few different activations, including with Black Girl Hockey Club. And then you've got the Dallas, almost said Wings. I've got WNBA on my mind. You've got the Dallas Stars against the Calgary Flames. All right, so what's it looking like? The odds are plus 105 for the Bruins versus Carolina. They're at a minus, 125. So Boston odds 21 out of 20. 4 out of 5 for Carolina. You've got the Tampa Bay Lightning and Toronto Maple Leaf series. It's a plus 110 line in favor of Tampa Bay. You're at a minus 130. if you're going to wager on the Toronto Maple Leafs. For the St. Louis Blues versus Wild, you're at the plus 135 for the Blues. You're at minus 155 if you are to wager on the Minnesota Wild. Los Angeles Kings versus the Edmonton Oilers. Folks in our Pacific Division, plus 195 if you wager on the Kings, on minus 225 for the Edmonton Oilers. All right. And then you are dead even for Pittsburgh versus New York. Both odds are at a minus 110, a minus 110 Pittsburgh, New York. So that's going to be interesting, even just looking at the odds, that series. Washington Capitals, a plus 275, a minus 325. That's the line for the Florida Panthers. For the Nashville Predators, Colorado Avalanche series, a plus 460 if you are to wager on the Preds. You're at a minus 600 if you wager on Colorado. And then the Dallas Stars Calgary Flame odds, the lines are plus 240 for Dallas. That's a minus 280 if you were to wager on the Flames. So, that negative number is kind of looking at who's projected to win, and you win more if you bet on the team that is not projected and predicted to win. So that's a little bit about how that works. But as I mentioned, we're going to talk more about the Seattle Kraken and their exit interviews. We've already gotten some media availability from Brandon Tanev, but we're going to save that for tomorrow for Turbo Tuesday. We're going to see what the other guys have to say in their exit interviews. But I also mentioned that I kind of want to bring this around to community. So every once in a while, we're going to have an opportunity just to reflect, and hopefully I can give you some things and some just food for thought to make your day better. You're spending your day either listening or watching me talk about the Seattle Kraken, and I want to make sure that I'm bringing joy and that I am providing tools and that I'm making sure that I encourage you every day, because we need that. I mean, we saw some of the media availability that happened in the hockey community regarding Brock Bosner and his father dealing with dementia. There's been a lot of conversation about that, not all that I agree with, but what I will say is that it was just a reminder to me that we should be kind to one another. We should reach out to one another and hold space for people to say that they're not okay. To say that they're struggling, to say that, you know what, I don't want to talk about it right now, but thank you for asking. Or I do want to talk about it and I appreciate you letting me talk. When people are struggling, they don't always need your advice. Sometimes they just need to release that fear, that grief, that frustration. And so hopefully I can just provide mildly some of that as we engage either through the screen or through your earpod speaker or whatever. But I am thankful to you. It's not always easy. I've kind of opened up about that doing a daily show, and I've certainly have struggled. I've been in my own mental, failure hall of fame for things that I haven't done, or even some of the things that I have done for this show. But I'm learning to move day by day with grace. I hope that you know that I am very grateful to you, and I hope that you're having a great day. And if you're not having a great day, I just want to encourage you, and I honor how you're feeling. And I hope that we can engage again, either in real time on social media or through this podcast when you're having your next good day. So wherever you are, I hold space for you. I appreciate you, and hold fast and stay true, not just for yourself, not just for the Seattle Kraken, but for yourself and your family and your loved ones as well. So that's my little ray of sunshine for you. You give me plenty just by listening to this show. And so now that we've wrapped that up, we'll be back tomorrow. I want to remind you, though, to head over to Locked On NHL, where you can learn more about those odds that I talked about. And of course, they will go more in depth when it comes to the playoffs. I'll give you a little bit here and there, but we're going to focus on our guys and focus on our community. So again, for yourself and for your family, and definitely for our shared interest in the Seattle Kraken, hold fast and stay true today. I'll see you tomorrow.